Hello everybody, this is Dragonzilla1991 here, and we have another double review, the subjects being this time Doedicurus, or Doedicurus as some folks pronounce it, but I refer to it as Doedicurus, because that's how I originally heard it in Walking with Beasts. Now for the animal itself, Doedicurus was a giant armadillo that was a large member of the Glyptodon species, that was native to South America, first evolving 2 million years ago, and then became extinct 11,000 years ago, and were known as mammalian ankylosaurs. And as you can see, they bear a striking resemblance to the armored dinosaur Ankylosaurus from the late Cretaceous period. Now these models are from different manufacturers. One was made by Safari, and the other Collecta. Which of these is the best representation of the animal? Well, as Mr. Al would say,
let's find out.
What was that? First up is the old Safari figure that was released all the way back in 2005, so this is now 20 years old. As for my thoughts on it, well, I'm kinda mixed. For starters, I like the design of the model, even though it's a bit too mammalian, especially in the face, which to me looks more like a hamster rather than armadillo-like. I also like the pose that he's making, with his tail raised up, ready to defend himself from a threat, whether it be a predator or a rival. Those are what I do like about the figure. Now for what I don't like. Firstly, it's the size. Although to be fair, Safari's figures that were made back in 2005 were on the short scale, and if produced now the model would be larger. I'm not too enthusiastic on the colour schemes, that being orange for the fur and spikes, that we'll talk about shortly, and the shell-like body armour, head cap and feet being silver with bits of orange shown. The club spikes at the end of the tail are not only lethal looking, but also exaggerated too. And yes, Doedicurus did have spikes, however they were actually more blunt rather than thin. You'll see what I mean when we look at the Collecta figure. I believe that this model is still available, and despite it being made by the master company of Scientific Accuracies, along with Viofauna, yeah, this is clearly now outdated. But for 2005, it was fairly accurate for the time, and perhaps it would have worked much better as its smaller cousin, Glyptodon. Up next and finally is Collecta's take on Doedicurus, but this figure is up to date because he's larger, and the colour scheme is what I can only describe as rusty tan brown. The tail shows what the club spikes actually look like, and as you can see they're quite thick, pretty blunt and blade-like, and compared to the Safari figure, that tail is pretty darn long, and so was Safari's, however it was nowhere near as long as this. The body armour not only displays scutes, if that's what they are, but take another look and you'll be quick to notice that he possesses what appears to be hair, and because these animals were of course mammals, it's very possible that Doedicurus would have had fine fur on its shell-like body, and we can see this recreation on the Doedicurus model in the Netflix series Life on Our Planet. Where the face of the Safari version was hamster-like, well that doesn't happen with this figure, as it's more unique. Although I have seen some depictions of the animal and its cousin Glyptodon with trunk-like noses. However, I don't know if that's a theory or a debate. And I also like the protective cap on his head, something that the Walking with Beasts incarnation lacked. Like the Safari model, he appears to be on the defense, but this time his legs are raised up, but to give the impression that he's a lot bigger than he looks. Or maybe he's just having a calm walk, minding his own business. This was one of the models that Collecta announced back in late 2020, and out of all of them, Doedicurus was the animal that I was hyped for the most, despite Zimvac Tennis, who we'll look at another time, coming in last. Now for size comparisons. Well, here are the two giant armadillos with their shorter cousin Glyptodon from the Wild Republic Ice Age Animals set that I have not yet looked at, but will do at some point in the future. And this is what they look like on Safari Limited's takes on the Pleistocene Goliaths, those being the woolly mammoth, Smilodon and Megatherium that were all covered in the same video not too long ago, links in the description below. So what are my final thoughts on the Safari Limited and Collecta Doedicurus? Well, I think that they're both great, especially if you're an enthusiast on this animal. However, out of the two, I would recommend the Collecta model. Pick up the Safari figure if you want, but personally I would go for the Collecta Doedicurus. This is Dragonzilla1991 signing out. Take care, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye for now.